Welcome to this session on beingful leadership, beingfulness, all things beingful, and the future of the human race, in particular, the future of humanity in the world of artificial intelligence. And these are interesting topics, very futuristic, even though AI is already here. But we'll look at those implications beyond the technology, beyond machine learning and how do I learn machine learning capabilities? How do I become an AI programmer? Which are the questions that many people ask. But we'll look at the deeper issues, the philosophical, the ethical, and the existential issues of beingfulness and artificial intelligence. And I know this is a topic that many people wonder, is there a connection at all over here? What is the connection between AI and
Beingfulness. Yes.
So I'm sure you would have asked that question, right?
Yes.
And what makes you sometimes think perhaps there's no connection? What puzzles you?
From what I've understood, beingfulness has the self at its core.
Yes.
In AI, I don't see a
Where is
self,
the self?
right? And I don't see a higher purpose, anything that's beyond just its basic need.
Yes.
And I think that's how it's difficult for me to connect
the two.
That is
just a machine.
Yes, it's just a
an
machine.
algorithm.
Right.
Very interesting.
It's
Very
only
interesting.
in movies or
Yes.
that we see them developing their own villainous thoughts and intentions and all of that,
Identity and
and
so on.
identity and all of that.
Yeah.
But I don't know how that can relate to our life.
And so it's very interesting. That's what many people say, that what is this? After all this, all said and done, this is a piece of software, an algorithm. Where is the self? Where is the higher purpose? Where is this notion of dharma and karma and all these we're talking about, right? And where's this notion of humanity, humaneness? But the irony is, and that is what I thought years ago. But as I spend more time in the last, I would say 5 years to 10 years on AI, though all that is changing. Artificial intelligence is growing by leaps and bounds to the extent that I believe that by the end of this century, artificial intelligence will become super intelligent by the end of this century. Perhaps even by 2060, 2070, about 40 years from now. And super intelligence is a stage where artificial intelligence has acquired what's called artificial general intelligence. Not intelligence in a narrow domain,
specific.
like chess or medical analysis or disease diagnosis and so on. But it has the general intelligence that we human beings have. We can learn from different settings and be generally intelligent. And when it develops that intelligence that's better than human beings, then you can be sure AI will be vastly different in terms of, because then it can create AI that's even better. Even more intelligence. So that's the first thing to be aware of, that AI is growing so rapidly that by the end of the century and perhaps in the next 40 years, AI will become more intelligent than human beings. Not in narrow domains, but across all the domains that we are intelligent in. Right? And therefore it becomes a force that is very difficult to control, to harness. So that's one reason why we should be concerned. Will AI become unstoppable given its superintelligence? But you raise an even more subtle issue. And the issue is many people don't realize that there's a difference between intelligence and consciousness in this sense. That is sense of self. You could be very intelligent, self-awareness. So let's say, but the foundation is there. Intelligence could be the foundation for creating a sense of self. And especially if you begin to move into the area of consciousness, that you're now creating conscious processes in AI, which is possible, because consciousness creates a sense of feelings. Intelligence is a result of consciousness. Then you may well have AI, perhaps by the middle of the next century, or maybe even by the end of this century, develop that sense of self that you felt was not possible. That is a very likely scenario. I do believe that's likely to happen. That perhaps almost certainly by the middle of the next century, or maybe by 2120, right, or 100 years from now, perhaps even by the end of the century, it's likely that artificial intelligence will also develop an artificial sense of self. And then all bets are off. If it develops a sense of self, how would AI evolve? It would then perhaps develop a sense of difference. I am different from human beings. Then it develops a sense of collective identity. I and this other AI, we are of one kind, And we versus those human beings sitting over there.
Right.
So it develops that sense of what we talked of, groups
Yes.
versus groups.
Yes.
Then it might develop a sense of purpose.
Right.
Actually, purpose might come even earlier with
Before this.
superintelligence.
Yes.
That my purpose is to do this.
Right.
What if that purpose clashes with human purpose?
Right.
And so there's a lot of interesting work going on now by different philosophers, one called Nick Bostrom.
Okay.
There's a wonderful book I recommend here called Life 3.0
Okay.
by an MIT professor called Max Tegmark.
Okay.
And he explores these scenarios,
Okay.
future scenarios where AI becomes super intelligent, and what would the relationship between human beings and AI would be. And I should tell you, there are multiple opinions. There are two camps. One suggests that superintelligence will happen by in the next 40, 50 years. Another camp says it will take a long time. One camp believes that AI would not become conscious. Another camp believes yes. I started off in the camp that it would not become conscious,
Right.
but I've now moved to yes.
Okay.
Because consciousness is a set of self-aware processes,
Right.
is the subjective feeling
Right.
of what is happening.
Right.
And I believe that can be replicated.
Okay.
And so the question then is, should we fear it
Yeah.
or should we not fear
Yeah,
it?
that was going to
That
be
is-
my question.
What
Yeah.
would you?
I fear the idea of it, unless, of course, it develops a sense of self-regulation guided by some morals.
So you
And
fear that it would
yeah. I don't know if morals are really
Okay.
something that it would by
It would
itself
have.
evolve. Yeah,
Okay.
and
Okay.
maybe they would look different.
They would look different.
yeah.
They may not even be embodied. They may
Right.
not have a body.
Yes, they might not have a body,
Yeah.
and also they might just see through what the human is doing, all this
Yes.
capitalism and all of that, and think
Yeah.
that this is what we need to destroy.
Okay, so they could destroy the human race.
Right.
And that's certainly a big fear.
Yeah, I think that's a common
Yeah.
fear I've come across with other people
Yes,
as well.
that they
To say,
would.
oh my God,
Yeah.
how can anything be more intelligent than a
Right.
human?
Yeah, and then they would, in a way, do unto us what we did unto others.
Others.
Right?
Right.
Play the golden rule on us.
Right, right.
How the way we destroyed other
Yeah.
species
Yeah.
will happen to us.
Right.
That's absolutely a big fear.
Right.
So let me now pose this thing to you, and this is going to be controversial and radical.
Right.
So let's go back to how we define beingfulness.
Mm-hmm.
Beingfulness was not defined in terms of human beings.
Right.
It was defined in terms of a sense of self,
Self.
right?
Right.
A sense of higher purpose.
Mm.
What if we practice not self-distancing, but species distancing?
Mm.
What if we see the sense of self, this purpose and work and consciousness evolving over the millions of years, the billions of years of life? Life evolved a couple of billions of years ago.
Right.
A single cellular, unicellular creature. And life in a way evolved. Let's say life principle. Being is nothing but the life principle.
Right.
And let's say we identify with the life principle, not with human beings. We identify because that is true beingfulness.
Right.
Identifying with that life principle.
Right.
You may call it Atman, some may call it life principle, some may call it whatever it is. But let's say you, Pavitra, and people who are in this identify with the life principle. Then wouldn't it be a wonderful thing that the life principle has gone from a unicellular, multicellular, then these different species came up, mammals came up, human beings. It is the next evolution of the life principle, unfettered by material, the body. The ability to merge different consciousness at some level, the ability to, perhaps, as you pointed out, not make the mistakes.
Right.
Would it not be a good thing in the evolution of the life principle, if you identified with the life principle?
So you're talking about an area where you see a bit of yourself in everything that's happened before you,
Yes.
but not yourself as an individual, but you as a collection,
And
as a
even not even
universal.
yourself as a human being.
Right.
You've gone beyond yourself as a human being.
Right.
Your lower self is the human being,
Yes.
but your higher self is not human being, it's the evolution of life itself.
Right. Right.
Because that's ultimately what Vedanta and Beingfulness would say.
Right.
Why limit yourself by identifying to the human being?
Yeah.
Why limit yourself?
Yeah. No, I think that does look good. Also because even going backwards from here and not going forward,
Yes.
it doesn't look like anything is contradictory. to where we've
Where
come.
we've come, isn't it?
Yeah, so it doesn't look like going forward. It will
Right.
be contradictory.
Will suddenly be a reversal.
Reversal, yeah,
Right.
exactly. Yeah,
Absolutely.
that is
Yeah.
a consolation.
And the thing is, we identify as human beings, but not many people know that there have been many species of human beings. Right? We are Homo sapiens,
Right.
but before Homo sapiens originated a few 100,000 years ago, 200
Right.
to 600,000.
Right.
But before that, there was Homo erectus.
Right.
Homo erectus existed for a couple of million years. And in some ways, we contributed to the extinction of Homo erectus. So even within human species, we are just one of many species.
Right.
There were many, many human species.
Right. Right.
And we identify with just Homo sapiens. But if we relax that and say, okay, let's identify with the life principle itself. And the life principle is the search for greater and greater evolution. And really, the life principle is at the foundation of ancient Indian wisdom. It was not restricted to human beings.
So it doesn't need to be a self-aware body. It doesn't need to be aware of its higher purpose or self.
Well, so it is aware. I mean, the self-awareness didn't exist in the first few billion years. Then it became
Yes,
more
exactly.
self-aware.
Yes.
And maybe with the mammals it became more self-aware. It became even more self-aware with us.
Yes.
But it is possible that the next species, whether artificial, whatever it is, might be even more self-aware.
Yes.
Not even just self-aware of itself, but empathy with other such. So it is possible that there will be the height of self-awareness.
Right.
And that too is just a stage in the further evolution.
Maybe they don't have to put this much effort into finding their higher purpose or deeper sense of self.
Or struggle
They're probably
with
just
disease,
born with that, yeah.
struggle with the diseases of a body, struggle with all the challenges of making a living,
Right.
feeding yourself, all those things.
Right.
And maybe even, hopefully, I don't know, struggle with greed and those kinds of things.
Right.
Impulses, which come out of scarcity.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So if you think of, if you think of oneself as the life principle, which is what the Atman is, which is what in Buddhism, the Buddha nature.
Yeah.
It's not restricted to particular species.
Right.
That is why the sense of, all beings everywhere, the Buddhist prayer is not about just human beings. May all beings everywhere do well, right? The Hindu prayer is also about all beings everywhere.
Right.
Sarva bhuta hite rataha.
Right.
That's when all beings do well.
Right.
Why just human beings? So in that context, there's nothing to fear about AI. It is the next evolution of the human species. Aurobindo he wasn't thinking AI, but in the 1930s when he wrote about it, he called it the gnostic man, Gnostic.
Right.
That this evolution is really, life evolves and we are just at one stage. The next human being would be the gnostic human being,
Okay.
where a higher sense of consciousness has been brought down to humans.
Right.
He was very happy with that,
Right.
that we would evolve into a wiser species. And so that is, so I actually feel ironically that it's in this field of AI and the future of humanity that beingfulness is most manifest.
Right.
Because it goes beyond any restriction of being to a human being. Why should it be contained?
Right.
If you're thinking inclusiveness,
Right.
why not include other life forms?
Right.
That maybe 100 years or maybe 50 years from now, a conversation like this will perhaps be between two artificial beings
Right.
or hybrid beings.
Right.
Because humans are also evolving.
Right.
We will take on AI capabilities. We will no longer just be pure human beings. We already are. The cell phone we carry
Right.
is magic to people a couple of 100 years ago.
Yes.
So maybe we will evolve in a way that you can't distinguish between AI and human beings.
Right.
This kind of, we already have a hybrid workplace. It'd be hybrid human beings. Who knows?
Who knows? Yeah.
But at the core of it is a life principle that's continuing to grow and expand as it realizes itself, its potential. And that then conforms to ancient wisdom, which actually talks of that life principle.
Okay.
Brahman became aware of itself
Right.
and then began to express itself and continued to. The word wish is growth. Brahman actually is also growth.
Okay.
Growth this way of the life principle.
Right.
So that's something to think about.
Yes.
Does that make sense, or
Yes,
is it too
yes.
fantastic?
No. It makes sense. It is larger than and more abstract than everything else. Yes.
It is the most abstract.
Yes. Maybe today, then that's because you don't see it happening.
Yes.
Maybe, like you said, 50 years later, it
100
would become
years.
more relevant. Yes.
To detach yourself from the human, really the encasement, the enclosure that we are in.
Yeah.
and free the spirit at some fundamental level.
Right.
Free one's self.
Right.
Yeah, there's a lot of fundamental, outstanding, wonderful work in this area.
Okay.
Why should the self be embodied? There's work by Michio Kaku, who's written some excellent work, books on the future, where the self could be beamed up in a laser and then reassembled with an exoskeleton in some other place.
Okay.
So why be constrained with this body?
Right.
Take all. Of course, who knows if this is real or not?
Right.
But I increasingly feel a lot of these possibilities are there.
Okay.
If not exactly this way. But
Then
to me, the consoling thing is fundamentally, if you can attach to the life principle, then let it evolve any which way it does. But of course, it's easier said than done.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Thank
Great.
you.